Welcome to the Daily Plunge. We are in Psalm 48 and verses 1 through 14. This is called a Song of Zion. And while it talks about Jerusalem and Zion, it's a song really about God, because Jerusalem and Zion have no purpose outside of being the dwelling place of the Lord. It starts off and it says, "Great is the Lord to be praised." And God is to be praised in the city of God, as it says, which is his people. And for us, that is in the church. And we should be praising God because God, and how often? All the time. Because God commands it and because God deserves our praise. And he talks about how, this is the city of God on his holy mountain. And Jerusalem does sit elevated from the areas around it. It's not the highest hill, highest mountain in Judah. But again, you have to walk up to it. That's why it talks about its loftiness. But it is the dwelling place of God. And that's what this whole psalm is about in the place where God dwells, Jerusalem, in the life of the church, is God's praise. And ultimately, for us as Christians, that's within us ourselves, right? And it talks about how the city of God is beautiful, but it's beautiful because of the beauty of God dwelling and emanating forth in the people. And that's what's making the city beautiful. It talks about how God is her citadel. He is their fortress. And it's kind of funny because the city is a fortress, but within the fortress is the fortress of God, and that God has delivered them from their enemies, right? And it talks about how the kings assemble an army, but God has moved against that army and sent them into flight, that they were dumbstruck and anguished and overcome with fright and fled in panic. And it talks about how, they were like women trembling in pain, in the pain of labor. And then in verse 7, it talks about the ships of Tarshish, which was the most mighty Navy ships of that time. And that, God just tosses them about. God sends a strong wind against their armada, just like he did in 1588 against the Spanish Armada. And as he goes on, we have heard and we have seen in the city of the Lord our Almighty, the city of God, that, there's this testimony to what God is doing to bless them. And we meditate on your never failing, steadfast love. We meditate, we ponder and praise who you are, Lord. And how the praise of God goes out from Jerusalem. And in verse 11, it goes to the villages. And ultimately, in verse 10, it goes to the ends of the earth, and how the Mount Zion, the daughters of Judah, are rejoicing over God's judgment, which means God's justice. And then in verses 12 and 13, it talks about doing a walkabout around the bulwarks of Zion, her ramparts. And what are the bulwarks of our faith, of the church? And the bulwarks of the church is Jesus Christ the King, right? God's promises, God's protection, God's presence. That is the wall of the church. That's our bulwarks against the assaults of this world. And then lastly, he talks about how he is our guide to death. I mean, God is with us all the way through death, and he is our God forever, including life beyond. Thanks, friends. Have a blessed day.